Welcome to Everyday Linux User. Today we're going to be installing MX Linux as a virtual machine using Oracle VirtualBox. So the first thing we're going to need is VirtualBox. If you've already got that installed, then you can skip along until the installation bit. So I'm going to open up Chrome or whichever browser you choose to use. And we're just going to search for Oracle VirtualBox. I'm going to search for download. So you're looking for virtualbox.org and then downloads. Anything else comes up, then I can't guarantee it's the right site. So I'm using Windows 11 for this, so I'm going to go for Windows hosts. And you can see it's downloaded in the bottom left corner there. So now we're going to open that up. So when the installer appears, you're at the welcome screen, just click Next. You can leave the defaults as they are, click Next. If you want to install it somewhere other than the default, you can click Browse and then choose the folder you want to install it to. But if you're happy with the default selection, just click Next. And then you can click Yes to install VirtualBox. It says about missing dependencies. You can just click Yes, it does still work. And then click Install. And now you can click Start VirtualBox by leaving this checkbox checked and then clicking Finish. I'm actually not going to do that. I'll just show you. It's created an icon on the desktop, so you can double click the icon when it's there. I'm going to click Finish because I want to show you the next step. And the next step is to go and get MX Linux. So we're just going to type MX Linux. And then open up the web page. So a bit about MX Linux. It's a really lightweight Linux distribution, and it's actually number one in the DistroWatch Linux distributions list. Now the way that works is that it's based on the number of click-throughs on the DistroWatch site, so it doesn't necessarily guarantee popularity, because you can imagine people looking for Ubuntu probably don't even use DistroWatch to go and get Ubuntu. They just know it exists, so they search for Ubuntu. So you're missing clicks on some popular distributions because people will go straight for them rather than going via DistroWatch. The people using DistroWatch are looking for perhaps a new distribution they haven't used before, and you can imagine that once a distribution gets high up in the charts, it becomes more popular for click-throughs because people think, well, I'll try the one that's at number one first and then work my way down. So, but yeah, I've tried MX Linux. I've got a review coming up, and I can honestly say it's a great distribution, so it's well worth using. I'm going to show you how to do it in a virtual machine, full screen, using Windows, so that you can try it out for yourself and you can see how good it is as well. So if you scroll down, the default desktop environment is XFCE, which is what I'm going to be using today. But there is a KDE and a Fluxbox version. So now if I click on download, it takes you to this page here, gives you download links. So you've got the XFCE ones up here, you've got the KDE and then the Fluxbox. So if you've got a 32-bit machine, MX Linux is one of those that still support 32-bit, so it's a good choice for that. The other two, so I've actually downloaded both of these previously. The top one it uses Debian stable, so you've got a stable system without any issues whatsoever, but it hasn't got the latest hardware support. So if you've got modern Wi-Fi card, modern graphics drivers, it may not be in there. So in that case, you can go for the x64 with the advanced hardware support, and that comes with a newer version of the kernel, so that, as you can see here, it supports AMD graphics, RX graphics. It also supports newer Wi-Fi drivers and other firmware. So if you just want to download one, you just have to click on the link. So I'm going to click on the KDE one because I haven't clicked that one previously. And then it takes you to the SourceForge page. Click accept for that, and then you'll see a countdown timer here. Now, as you see now, the countdown timer started, and very shortly you'll see the distribution That's Windows getting in the way there. As you can see, the distribution is now downloaded in the bottom left corner. And you get a thank you for downloading MX Linux. Now I'm going to minimize that. I've already got MX Linux downloaded, so I'll go to my downloads folder here to prove the point. And you can see that's the one that's downloaded. That's VirtualBox that I've downloaded now. And I downloaded the MX user manual, which is worth looking at. And there's the one I downloaded last month for MX Linux, which is just the plain x64, which is the XFCE version, and then the advanced hardware support. So today I'm going to install the just plain one because I don't need the advanced hardware support because I'm going to be using Ethernet for my internet. So let's click on the VirtualBox to open it up. And you can see I've already got two machines there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one so that we're starting completely from scratch. And actually I don't need the Ubuntu one either, so I'm going to delete that one as well. So this is the screen you'll end up in if you've got no other virtual machines. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new virtual machine. So we click on new, and so we're going to call it MX Linux. I'm going to call it Jan 2023 because I've already got one installed, so I want to make sure. Where are you going to put it? I'm going to put it other. I've got a big D drive. So I've got an MX Linux folder, so I'm just going to put it in there. The ISO image is the one from the downloads folder. So I'm going to download this one, which is the XFCE version without the advanced hardware support. And version, this is, I'm going to change this to Debian 64-bit. The reason for that is MX is based on Debian, and it's the 64-bit version I'm using, so that's the best one to choose in this instance. I'm not going to do unattended install. I am going to change the hardware. So the hardware base is 2 gigabytes. If I show you the manual, you can see from the manual, if I scroll down, there is a section that tells you the minimum requirements, and the minimum requirements is 1 gigabyte of RAM and 6 gigabyte of hard drive space. So as you can see, it's lightweight. But there is a recommended section, and the recommended is 2 gigabytes of RAM and 20 gigs of hard drive space. So with that in mind, what I'm actually going to do, I've got 12 gig on my machine here, so I'm going to ramp it up to 4. So that's 4 gigabyte of RAM, and I'm going to use 2 of my 8 cores. And then hard drive, I'm just going to call it, leave it as the default settings, so it's 20 gigabytes in size. And then I'm going to click finish. So now I can click start, and that will start the virtual machine and should start the installer. You can see it powering up there. You can close these messages here, and as you can see, we've now got the MX Linux boot options. So I want the top one, and that starts off the USB drive, so I should load into MX Linux now. Because I'm using wired internet, it showed a wired internet connection, but even if you're using Wi-Fi, it's probably going to use a wired connection as well, because the virtual machine uses your wireless and makes it look like it's wired. You can click down here, and then you can, if there's any wireless, you could pick it up here, but you shouldn't need to. It should just automatically populate. So here we are at the installer. Now, ideally, you'd want to be in full screen mode, but you're not at this stage. I'm going to show you how to get full screen mode later on. But at the moment, I'm just going to maximize it to give me more real estate. As you see, it's quite a decent size like that. So if I click install MX Linux, It does this thing with a integrity check. You can press escape to skip that, or you can let it run through. All that's doing is making sure your ISO image is valid. So here we are. Now I'm going to change the keyboard settings because I'm in the UK. So I'm going to remove that one, add in my UK version, and just click OK there, and then I can just click OK. And then I can click Next here, and it's asking whether I want to use the entire disk. It's a virtual disk, so it's just a bit of space on my hard drive that it's going to use. And so yeah, I'm going to use the entire disk, and it's going to format that area. At this point, you can continue with the install. So I'm going to call it MXVM, and you can give it a domain name. So I'm going to call it MXVM. And then you've got the Samba server, so this should mean you can connect to your MX Linux from other machines that are on the same network as you. And then we're at the locales. So I'm, like I said before, I'm in the UK, so I'm going to click that and choose UK British English, and I'm going to change the time zone to Europe and choose London. I'm not actually anywhere near London. I'm a few hundred miles away from there. And then you can choose the clock format, whether it's military time or AM PM. There are some advanced service settings that you can choose if you want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to choose the default. Click Next, and then give myself a username and a password. And then you can give a different administrator password. And then you can choose to auto log in, and you can choose whether to save desktop changes as they happen. So I'm going to click Next for that. And now we're just waiting for the installer to finish doing its thing. This can take a little while, so you can go and get a drink and then come back in a short while. So after the files have copied across, you can see it's now doing other stuff. It'll update init, RAM, FS, whatever that is. It'll install grub, and then the installation will complete, and you should be able to, at that point, reboot your virtual machine, and should be able to start using MX Linux. So now you can see that the installation is finished. There's a checkbox, automatically reboot the system when the installer is closed. So as soon as I click finish, it's going to reboot the computer. If you wanted to continue with the live environment, you can uncheck that, click finish, play around a bit. You're in a virtual machine, so you may as well just reboot and start using the virtual machine as is. It asks to remove the disk, close the tray, and press enter to continue. So I'm going to just press enter. VirtualBox is clever enough usually to not use the disk. And as you can see, it's now rebooted, and this is the full installed version of MX Linux. And it boots into it quite quickly. So I didn't press anything there, it's just chosen the first option. And now you can see that MX Linux is beginning to boot. So now I'm going to enter my password. And I am in. So I can do, at this point, I can do view full screen mode. And it does seem to work quite well. So I will show you what you need to do if you can see that the background was tiling then, but it's finally sorted itself out. I will show you what to do if it doesn't do full screen mode, you have to install VirtualBox extras. We'll do that shortly. I'll show you that in action. So this is MX Linux itself. You've got frequently asked questions, user manual, wiki. So the user manual, as you can see, I downloaded earlier. It's quite useful. You've got forums. You can see how you can contribute, and then you've got the about section here. Very good. If by default you've got Firefox as the web browser, you can click down here to see all the other applications, and if you choose any one of these categories, you can see what's under them. So you can see it's got an IDE for development. You've got a few games. You've got a couple of graphics programs, an email client. You've got the Office suite, LibreOffice. But the main beauty about MX Linux is its tooling. So I'm going to close this window here, and so you've got the package installer. As you can see, these manage popular packages. So so if I want a different web browser, for instance, I can click on browser, and there's a whole host of them, and there's some that you wouldn't for other distributions get listed. So Chrome is listed here. I can install Chrome just by clicking that, clicking install, and it will install Chrome. You've got Brave, you've got Chromium itself, Vivaldi, even Microsoft Edge. So there's that. Yeah, there's loads of other packages you can install. So if you don't like the popular applications, you can look through the various repositories that are available. So you've got the stable packages. These come from the Debian stable branch. So these are very safe to install. You've got the MX test repo. They say you install them at your own risk, but they're likely to be higher versions than the one in the stable repo. And then you've got Debian backports. And again, these are likely to be newer than the ones that are in the stable. And then you've got the flat packs. These are, if you check out my video about flat packs, these are containered applications. So basically, you get all the dependencies as well as the main application all in one bundle, which should mean you don't get any dependency issues. It's worth noting that I tried installing Spotify on my main machine from the popular apps, and it didn't work. But if you install the Flatpak one, it does work. So that's worth bearing that in mind if you use Spotify. You can see it's taking a bit longer to download the package list for that. But there's a whole host of applications here that you can install as Flatpak images. So that's that. So the next thing I'm going to show you is what to do if you want to get full screen mode. And you can see on mine it has come up with full screen mode, but not every distribution does full screen mode like this. So if this will work for other distributions as well, Debian-based ones definitely. So I'm going to exit full screen mode here. So Control F, but it's the right control key, and F takes you out of the full screen mode. For this, it's worth taking you to the actual website that shows you where I get this information from. I don't just think of this stuff and it just pops into my head. So as you see, my KDE is now finished as well. So I'll go to Google and I'm going to search for Debian VirtualBox. Install extras. So what we're looking for is this wiki debian.org VirtualBox. So if we scroll down here, this shows you how to install VirtualBox, and then this bit shows you how to install the guest editions, which is what you're trying to do. So at the moment, we're using Bullseye, which is Debian 11. That's what MX Linux is based on. So you can scroll down here and you can see this is what you need to do. So first thing it says, add the fast track repository by following the instructions at fasttrack.debian.net. So we're going to do that. We'll open that link. And you just need to add that into your app sources list. So if I take you back to MX Linux, so what you want to do is you want to open a terminal. So right click and you can click open terminal here. And you can do sudo nano etc apt sources.list. Enter your password. So what we need to do is we need to go here and you can take that line, copy it, and you should be able to paste that in. Oh no, it's not going to let me do it, so I'm going to type it in instead. Deb https fasttrack.debian.net Debian fasttrack / and then there's a space. The space is important. And then you're looking Bullseye fast track main contrib. And then you Control O to save, Control X to exit. And you're going to do sudo apt update. And you can see in the list here is now added in the fast track repo. So there was a bit I missed there. If you go back to the options, you do need to run this command first. So apt install fast track archive keyring. Now if I do sudo update, it should work properly. So that's that done. So we go back to our manual here. Let me scroll down a bit. So we're done with that. We now close this page. And so we've just done the last bit. And you just need to install that. So that's sudo apt install VirtualBox guest x11. And as you see, the reason I've already got full screen mode, it says it's already the newest version that's installed. So if you're using another distribution other than MX, maybe that's not installed by default. Maybe if you can't get full screen mode, follow these instructions to get full screen mode on a Debian-based distribution. So before I finish this guide, I'll show you a couple more things on MX Linux. So if I click on the option there, you've got various other tools. You've got Conky toggle, which turns the clock on and off in the top right corner. And you've got MX tools. So you can do various things. So Conky, you can go into Conky Manager. And what you can do here is you can choose different styles for Conky. So for instance, you can have that. That's the one that's selected by default. But you can, as you can see, you can play around with this and have different versions of the Conky. In fact, you can have multiple versions overlaying each other. I mean, that's quite a nice looking thing there. So I can go back on that. So we're back to the Conky Manager, and now you're back at MX Tools. Codec installers, so you can play various media formats. Live USB maker, you've got boot options. So this allows you to select how long the boot menu lasts before it automatically goes into MX Linux, and it can change the kernel parameters as well. So MX Tweak allows you to change the format of the various things within the XFCE. So as you can see, you've got the panel down the left, but you can easily change it to be at the bottom. So if you prefer a more standard way of working, you can do that. You can edit the panel using right-click properties. So in this case, I've edited the separator. I meant to edit the panel. So I could do panel preferences. And then you can choose the items. You can see there's a separator. So if I wanted the whisker menu at the bottom, as you can see, it's now in the bottom right corner. And I've put it back up to the top again because it doesn't make sense for it to be anywhere else. You can change the theme, change the display settings, etc. If you don't like the wallpaper, you can right-click on the wallpaper, click desktop settings, and there's a number of different ones to choose from. That's more of my sort of style, I'd have thought. So that's MX Linux within a virtual machine. I'm going to put it full screen mode again. And you can see I'm using MX Linux as if it's my main operating system, even though it's on top of Windows. And it works really well. If you're going to try Linux out, this is a great way of doing it. It's better than a Ubuntu virtual machine. It doesn't take up nearly as much memory or nearly as much resources, and it works perfectly well. And I've got a full review of MX Linux coming up, but I wanted to show you this one. It's great as a virtual machine, totally worth doing. And that's the end of the video. So if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more content from Everyday Linux User, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.